Hey, what's going on YouTube? Orstorm here with another new video series today. I'm going to be talking about the Preparing For series. This is where I talk about decks that are coming out in future sets, and how to counter them. Now, the next two sets we're getting in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are Clash of Rebellions, where we're getting Ignites, Arrow Mages, and a bunch of new Red Eye support. And then after that, there's a set called Dimension of Chaos, where we're getting Majespecters and a lot of legacy support for decks that have long missed it. Even legendary, there's even a new legendary Fisherman card in that set. But the main part of this series is to prepare you for decks that you're going to see on the online Yu-Gi-Oh! Programs, as well as in the real-life game in a few months. Obviously, it's very annoying when you hop into Dueling Network and you play this deck that is just frustrating and difficult to counter. Today I'm talking a little bit about Majespecters. Majespecters are a new Pendulum archetype that are coming out in Dimension of Chaos, which is the set after Clash of Rebellions. And the biggest thing first thing you will notice about every Majespecter card is it searches and it is completely immune to targeting and destruction. So basically, it's like Hazy Flames had a baby that is also immune to destruction, and that's pretty damn annoying. So if you're like me, you've probably been mainboarding a lot of cards like Torrential Tribute, Raigeki, Fiendish Chain, Breakthrough Skill, etc. Those cards are basically useless against Majespecters, and that's what makes them so frustrating. Not only that, they have all these annoying spells and traps that basically get rid of your monsters. Many of them target, with the exception of the counter trap those, so if you can get something like Yugioh on the field, they do have a lot of trouble getting it off the field, provided they do not have the counter trap set. So today I'm going to talk a little bit how you can prepare for Majespecters on Dueling Network and in other places. Now, the first thing I will say is I'm going to talk about one-of Floodgates, meaning these cards are currently placed at 1 in the TCG, or the American and European trading version of Yu-Gi-Oh! On our ban list, these cards are at 1. So the first card I'm going to talk about is Skill Drain. Skill Drain is an incredibly powerful card against Majespecters and is currently placed at 1. However, it really shuts them down, because not only does it stop all of their searching, it also strips them of the main strength they have, which is their destruction and targeting immunity. With Skill Drain on the field, you can actually use those traps and spells that normally would not work on them and use them to your heart's content. Not every deck can play Skill Drain, obviously, and it is currently placed at 1, so in my opinion, Skill Drain is a side deck card currently because it's placed at 1. If there were multiple copies, I would consider mainboarding it in a deck if your deck works with it, but it's at 1, so you have to think about that. The next two cards we're going to talk about are Dimensional Fisher and Macrocosmos. I've done a video explaining why Pendulums get banished into Macrocosmos, so I'm not going to delve into why they get banished here, but the basic premise is under Deep Fisher, Pendulum monsters, while in the Monster Zone, will get banished. Under Macrocosmos, they will also get banished while they're in the Pendulum Zone as well. This prevents them from going back to the extra deck, which is the biggest problem in Majespecters, is after you kill their monsters, they will immediately return straight to the extra deck, special summon again, and search again. This is going to annoy the heck out of you. So the best way, in my opinion, to deal with this is cards like that. Obviously, since those cards deal with them, it needs no explanation of why. Dark Law is actually a pretty good card against Majespecters as well. It's just not as good as Macrocosmos because it's a monster, and even though it will cost them a few resources, it is not difficult for Majespecters to banish or pop your Dark Law. Definitely needs to be stated. So the other cards, and now I'm going to go briefly how you can construct your main deck to counter Majespecters. The basic first thing I would say, you've got to be mainboarding triple MST. Honestly, I think now that we're getting into, especially as we're getting more Pendulum support in the future, mainboarding 3 MST is going to be absolutely mandatory going forward. Especially since Cliff Forts are seeing more play with the Towers Turbo Wavering Eyes build. Going forward, mainboarding 3 space is a very good idea. Now, I'm not saying do not run cards like Raigeki or Torrential Tribute, because they're obviously good against other decks, but against Majespecters, those cards are useless. The same thing goes for Breakthrough Skills and Fiendish Chains. So the other thing you can do against Majespecters is you can also main or side deck Floodgates. Probably the most powerful card against Majespecters, the one that does shut them down pretty quick, is a card called Poisonous Winds. It is a common from, I believe, Photon Shockwave. It's going up quite a bit in price. However, it is a non-short printed common, which means it's in abundance. It's just a lot of people probably have a bunch of them sitting and put away in a tin or in a binder. And the reason it's going up is because there's a very small supply, but I think in the next few weeks, there will be a plethora of the copies of the card put on the secondary market, which will probably prevent the card from going up to, Vanity's Emptiness levels, which were $40 at one point. So I do think Poisonous Winds is a card that's pretty safe to invest in. It's also pretty good. It's also very good against Ritual Beast. So definitely invest in a playset of those for your side deck for the future. The other cards I've heard people talk about is obviously it's a Pendulum deck, so Anti-Spell Fragrance doesn't really need an explanation. It prevents them from setting their Pendulum scales in the first place because Pendulums have to be face up in the Pendulum zone. So Spell Fragrance is a very powerful card. It also makes them set their spell cards first, so all their spells and trap shenanigans cannot be used the minute they search them. That's definitely a card that you can look at. And obviously, since I've mentioned Search quite a bit, it would be bad of me not to mention cards like Thunder King Raiho and Mistake that stopped searching in the first place, as well as the card that's coming out in Clash Rebellion's name. I think it's been renamed to Mistaken Arrest. It's basically like a mistake, except it only lasts until the end of your next turn. So it's sort of like a quick play mistake if you're playing something like Necros that searches a lot. So that's definitely a good card to look at. And obviously, in the theme of anti-search cards, Shared Ride is also very good against them because the deck really needs to search to function, so they have to take the Shared Ride challenge usually. Another card obviously I have to mention is Mind Crush. Now against Majespecters, what should you call under Mind Crush? You definitely need to call that Counter Trap because you can deal with the other stuff if you have something like Forbidden Lance or something. You make something like Yazi or Thought Ruler Archfiend that has targeting protection from spells and traps. You can't even make those cards if they get that Counter Trap in their hand. The Counter Trap is searched with the Fox and the Cat can add it on the end phase. So that's definitely the card you need to be mind crushing if you're playing against Majespecters. The other cards that I've heard people talk about, and these are actually really interesting. All the Majespecter spells and traps tribute monsters, so naturally, and they required wind-type spellcaster monsters to be tributed. So naturally, Mask of Restrict is a pretty dang good card against Majespecters because it cuts them off from those tribute summon monsters. You have to keep in mind though, Mask of Restrict is not a full solution because they can still go into rank 4 like Chidori and bounce atop the extra deck. They can get around Master Restrict easier than something like Cliff Orts can, but Master Restrict is a very good card against them. Other cards that come to mind are cards that change typing and attribute. Cards like DNA Surgery and Zombie World are changed typing, which means they cannot tribute them off with those spells and traps. Zombie World is also would be bad if I didn't neglect to mention that Zombie World can be searched off of terraforming. So if you're playing something like UAs or some kind of deck, or you're going to be building Arrow Mages, some kind of deck that needs a field spell and runs terraforming, it just makes sense to run Zombie World because it's a search target. So those two cards are very good. Also, if you really want to be obscure, you could run DNA Transplant and change everything from Wind Attribute because they do require also to be Wind Attribute. So that's another thing you can do as well. So that basically comes about to the end of the video. I've come up with a lot of options for stopping Majespecters. If you have any other ideas, let me know down in the comments section below. And if you like what you saw from this video, please subscribe. This is Orstorm, signing out.